Hey everyone, Goblin here, and today we are taking a look at Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Before I even start this review, we'll have no story or quest spoilers, both in footage or transcript, even when I'm discussing the story and if it's good or not, so you can watch it without worries. Now, let's start the review. KCD2 is of course the long-awaited sequel of KCD, which is an absolute gem of a game. A medieval RPG focusing more on realism than flashiness of fantasy RPG games. Let's start with gameplay to see if second game upgrades on the first one or if it fails at it. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, it really helps me to create more content. So, gameplay of KCD2. After a lot of hours spent in the game, I can safely say this is an absolute peak of realistic RPG games. Almost every aspect of the game received some kind of quality of life upgrade. There is a very small but absolutely amazing upgrade here. If you have to follow someone, you can press a key and your character will follow the person on their own. They'll keep a distance and match their speed. This alone deserves an award because we all know how frustrating follow these NPC tasks can be when you can't match their speed. Combat received an update too. If you didn't play the first game, it was very grounded in realism, but it could be clunky and not enjoyable at moments, especially with multiple enemies against you. Now, you can't just go and hack an entire army down, but they did make the combat less clunky and not so reliant on master strikes. Those were basically one button win in the first game. Here it's still a button press, but you have to have your weapon in the correct position. No longer does it work from anywhere, which is a good thing. Combos now work better too, and you can actually execute them, and if you do, you'll do a lot of damage to the enemy. Archery is now complemented with crossbows, and both bows and crossbows can absolutely annihilate enemies, especially if coated with poisons. You should utilize poisons with archery because if you don't, then you're missing out. Speaking of poisons, we of course have alchemy back, and it's slightly different than the first game. Now the sandglass is actually useful because you put the cauldron on the flame and then you have to boil for a certain time, which sandglass measures. It's not too hard though, and sometimes it's actually nice to relax and brew potions for a day or so. This is especially true if you get a perk which raises your energy while brewing potions. This is done through leveling, which levels, well, whatever you do. Thieving raises thievery, skulking around in darkness stealth, and so on. You level up different weapons too. If you use the sword, it will level up, and so on. You use the perk points to make your character stronger and more durable, and it's similar to the first game. In fact, in a lot of respects, KCD2 is very similar to the first one, but it's just better. And we have a new addition here, which is blacksmithing, which allows not only to make a few groschen with your skills, but you can also forge your own things. And you know, it's good to get your mind from all of the killing you'll have to do because someone called your horse ugly. Speaking of which, horse riding is still very special. What you do is entirely dependent on what you want. You can take your time gathering herbs, exploring the landscape, which is absolutely amazing, more on that in graphics section, or do side quests. Stealth and thievery are of course both making the return, and you can become Garrett Master Thief at night. Don't get caught though, because the punishment can be very severe. One thing I do like is even with thievery and stealth you can't become too overpowered at the beginning like you could in the first game, which I personally think is very good. And of course we have main quest storyline, but don't rush it. Try to do everything else because otherwise you're missing out. Believe me. One thing I have to criticize here is gathering herbs, which again puts you in third person for some reason, and that's every time you pick a herb. There's a mod for that though, so that's okay. Gameplay all in all is an absolute upgrade on the first game, and I have to say it's leagues above something like Veilguard or even Skyrim, which is still holding up after all these years. Story with no spoilers is coming up next. So, without giving anything away, the story is presented really well. I'd say the story is presented better than the first game, but with the bigger budget, it should be. Intro sets up the whole story very well, while making it easy for people who didn't play the first game to understand what happened so far. So if you're new and don't want to play the first game for some reason, don't worry, you're covered. Quests themselves are amazing. Some are funny, some serious, and some just outright madness. You really have to play those for yourself because it would be a real shame if you only saw it for streamers and YouTubers. The main story makes sense and it's written very well. I don't think it's a spoiler to say you play as Henry again because, well, everyone knows the protagonist's name and he came to see us again. Supporting characters are great, some of them you'll love, some of them you'll hate, and again, some of them are just plain insane. Which is good, we all need a bit of madness in our lives. I said a little, not what we have in the real world. So the story, characters and side quests are all top notch. I can't say any more sadly, but just know, if you play this game and go to school in Europe, your history grade will go up just by reading the codex. Let's check on graphics. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 uses the same engine than the original game, and yes, it's notable, but what they did with the landscape is nothing short of a miracle. The land is breathing and alive. Forests are probably the absolute best forests I've seen in gaming, and you won't need to go out anymore because you'll be in nature anyways while traveling in the land of Bohemia. The atmosphere is absolutely amazing, from birds singing, wolves howling, and people in the villages and towns gossiping. The castles look amazing, and sometimes you'll stand on the edge of a cliff and press F1 for photo mode just to take some pictures of this absolutely beautiful landscape. I don't know how, but Warhorse Studios people managed to craft the absolute best realistic setting I've seen in this kind of games. I don't think I saw any flaws in this regard. Performance though is where I think Warhorse used pure witchcraft. This game runs buttery smooth. I'm playing on Ultra Full HD on a machine which isn't exactly the best out there, and the game never lagged once. I don't know how they achieved that, especially given the problems with the original, but they did. Performance is an absolute joy. Okay, last but not least, music and sound are on par with everything else here. Jan Valta, the man responsible for the music, did an amazing job with mixing new tracks with the old ones, and the music is enjoyable through and through, whether it's combat, riding through the land or sneaking around. Voice acting is amazing for the 90% of the time. While all of the actors do a great job, there is a bit of a weird swap with some NPCs, where cutscene voice actor will be different than when you play dice with the same person, for example. A bit weird, but I can get over that.
Hey? Stop fooling around!
And I thought someone was creeping around.
Before I get to final verdict though, let me address the controversy real quick. No, I wasn't forced into any relationships I didn't want. I had one chance to have one, but this was clearly marked, and I avoided it because my Henry just isn't into that. You can do whatever you want, so that's not a problem. Also, there are no unskippable cutscenes which would force you to watch something you don't want. KCD 2 surpassed my expectations. It's a game you can get absolutely lost in. Very good if you're on a diet because you'll forget to eat while playing, and sleep, which isn't ideal. Even Henry has to sleep and eat, so you do too. The game is an absolute banger, and if you don't play this one, you're missing out big time. It is currently the best RPG of its kind. No, I'm not counting Baldur's Gate 3 as the same kind, because it's completely different. The freedom this game gives you is on par with Red Dead Redemption 2, and it's up to you what kind of adventures await. Make your own and don't just follow quest markers. This is how KCD 2 is meant to be played. A must-have, absolutely well done Warhorse Studios. This was my spoiler-free review of KCD2. Comment down below if you agree with it, like and subscribe. Next up we'll have Avowed, another RPG, so yeah, stay tuned. Goblin out. Bye.